Cinderella. Once upon a time, there was a happy family, a kind father, a loving mother, and their sweet daughter, Cinderella. She was always cheerful and brought joy to everyone around her.
Let's play, little mice. Hide and seek in the garden.
Cinderella spent her days playing with the birds and mice. They were her best friends, and she was kind to everyone. But one day, her happy life changed. Her mother became very sick and passed away, leaving Cinderella and her father very sad. A few years later, Cinderella's father married again. His new wife came to live in their home with her two daughters, Anastasia and Drizella. At first, Cinderella hoped they could all live happily together, but her stepmother was unkind, and her stepsisters were selfish and lazy.
Cinderella, sweep the floors, wash our clothes, make us breakfast.
From morning to night, Cinderella worked hard, doing all the chores while her stepmother and stepsisters did nothing. They treated her like a servant. One day, a royal messenger arrived at their house with an important message.
The king invites every young lady to a grand ball. The prince will choose his bride.
This is our chance to marry the prince.
Stepmother, may I go to the ball too?
She's only good for dancing with a broom.
But the letter says every girl is invited.
Of course, dear. But only if you finish all the chores and find something suitable to wear.
Oh, thank you.
Cinderella ran up to her room and pulled a dress out of her trunk.
This was my mother's dress. Isn't it lovely? It just needs a little decoration.
The mice watched as Cinderella's face lit up with happiness.
She'll be the prettiest girl at the ball!
Yes, so pretty.
Cinderella gathered her sewing supplies.
I'll need a sash and some beads to fix it.
Just then, the stepmother called out,
Cinderella! Cinderella! Come here.
Cinderella hurried downstairs.
Wash the floors, dust the drapes, clean the windows, and finish the sewing.
But I washed the floors yesterday.
Then wash them again. Go now.
The mice felt sorry for Cinderella as she rushed to complete her endless chores.
Cinderella, do this! Cinderella, do that! She'll never have time to fix her dress.
Poor Cinderella.
What Cinderella didn't know was that her animal friends had a plan.
Let's make a dress for Cinderella.
The birds and mice got to work. Jackie and Benny sneaked into the stepsisters' room while they were distracted.
This sash is old.
And these beads? Ugh, horrible.
The stepsisters tossed the sash and beads onto the floor. Jackie and Benny quickly grabbed them.
Pretty, pretty.
Quiet, we don't want to wake Mittens.
Mittens, the sneaky cat, was curled up nearby, but Jackie and Benny managed to grab the beads and sash without waking her. They quickly returned to the attic where all the animals were waiting. Every beak and paw got to work. The birds and mice measured, cut, and sewed, turning the old beads and sash into something magical. That evening, it was time for the ball. The stepmother and stepsisters were ready to leave.
Oh, Cinderella, you're still not dressed. What a pity. You'll have to stay home.
The stepmother and stepsisters started for the ball, laughing as they prepared to leave. Cinderella climbed the stairs to her room, feeling heartbroken.
What's a royal ball anyway? It's probably boring and completely wonderful.
But when Cinderella opened her door, she stopped in her tracks.
Surprise!
There it was, a beautiful dress, sparkling with the beads and sash the mice had found. Cinderella's eyes filled with joy as she put on the gown.
It's so lovely. Thank you, my friends.
Cinderella put on the dress and rushed downstairs.
Look! May I go to the ball now? This is my mother's dress.
That's my sash.
And that's my beads.
The stepsisters tore the dress apart, leaving Cinderella in rags.
You can't go to the ball dressed like that. Stay home where you belong.
Heartbroken, Cinderella ran to the garden and cried.
It's just not fair. I only wanted to go. There's nothing left to believe in. Nothing.
What is happening?
As she wept, tiny sparkling lights began to appear.
Look at the lights. So pretty.
The lights grew brighter, swirling and shimmering until they formed the shape of a kind-looking woman holding a wand.
There, my dear. Why are you crying?
Who are you?
I'm your fairy godmother, and I'm here to help you.
There's nothing left to believe in. Nothing.
But you must believe in something, or I wouldn't be here at all. Now dry your tears.
The fairy godmother gently patted Cinderella's head and looked around the garden. The fairy godmother waved her wand with a flick of her wrist, and a soft glow surrounded the garden.
Let's see what we can do for you, my dear.
The garden seemed to sparkle with magic, and everything Cinderella needed was right there waiting to be transformed. With a wave of her wand, the fairy godmother turned 4 mice into beautiful white horses, a pumpkin into a golden carriage, and a dog into a coachman.
Now let's fix your dress.
With another wave of her wand, Cinderella's rags turned into a stunning gown with glass slippers.
It's perfect. Thank you so much.
Remember, the magic will end at midnight. Be home before the clock strikes 12.
The ball had already started, and the grand hall was filled with music and dancing, but the king was not pleased.
My son must find a bride tonight.
The prince had danced with many ladies at the ball, but none had captured his heart.
Perhaps love at first sight is just a fairy tale, Your Majesty.
Just then, Cinderella arrived at the top of the grand staircase. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at her.
She's so beautiful, like a dream come true.
The prince immediately walked up to Cinderella and asked her to dance.
May I have this dance with you?
Oh, is she? She's stealing all the attention.
She looks familiar somehow.
The prince and Cinderella danced gracefully across the floor. Everyone in the hall watched in amazement. When the dance ended, the prince took Cinderella's hand and led her to the garden. The two walked together under the stars, talking and laughing. It was clear they were falling in love. But just as Cinderella was about to share more of her story, the clock began to chime.
I must go.
Wait, don't leave.
But Cinderella didn't stop. She ran down the steps so quickly that she lost one of her glass slippers. The prince picked up the slipper and held it close.
I will find her. This slipper will lead me to my bride.
By the time Cinderella reached home, her dress had turned back into rags, the golden carriage was once again a pumpkin, and her horseman and coach were back to being mice and a dog. All she had left to remind her of the magical night was one sparkling glass slipper. The next morning, the news spread throughout the kingdom.
The prince will marry the girl whose foot fits the glass slipper.
Oh, this is wonderful news.
Cinderella's heart fluttered with hope, but her stepmother noticed the dreamy look in her eyes and grew suspicious.
You'll never marry the prince.
The cruel stepmother locked Cinderella in her room and kept the key in her pocket. Jackie and Benny, Cinderella's brave little friends, saw everything.
We have to get that key.
Let's hurry.
The two mice worked together to sneak into the stepmother's room. They climbed onto her dress and carefully pulled the heavy key out of her pocket. Carrying the key was no easy task. It was big and heavy, and the stairs were tall. But Jackie and Benny didn't give up. Meanwhile, the Duke arrived at Cinderella's house with the glass slipper.
The prince has ordered me to find the girl whose foot fits this slipper.
Anastasia tried to force her foot into the slipper, but it was way too big.
Oh no.
Drizella's toes didn't even fit.
Are there any other young ladies in this house?
No, there's no one else.
Just then, Cinderella appeared at the top of the stairs. Jackie and Benny had freed her in the nick of time.
May I try on the slipper?
But as the footman carried the slipper toward her, the stepmother tripped him, and the glass slipper fell to the floor, shattering into tiny pieces. Everyone gasped.
Now she can't prove it's her.
But Cinderella reached into her pocket and pulled out the other glass slipper.
I have the other one.
The Duke carefully placed the slipper on Cinderella's foot, and it fit perfectly.
Impossible. How can this be?
The glass slipper turned into a sparkling, magical light.
She's the one.
Cinderella was taken to the castle to meet the prince. The moment he looked into her eyes, the prince knew she was the one who had danced with him that magical night.
I've finally found you, my princess. You are the one who danced with me. Will you marry me?
With tears of joy, Cinderella said yes. Cinderella and the prince were married in a grand celebration. Her dreams had come true, and they lived happily ever after. Remember, with kindness and courage, anything is possible. Keep dreaming big.
Don't forget to subscribe for more awesome stories and adventures.